Have you ever watched something that completely rewired your brain chemistry?
A procedural network drama might not be your usual pick, but it's ours.
This is The Buddie System, a 911 deep dive podcast hosted by three friends who have DM'd each other enough character dissertations to earn a PhD in media literacy.
I'm Han, coming to you straight from the characters' heads.
I'm Sil, bringing you to the observation deck.
And I'm Rachel, connecting the dots with my red string.
With our powers combined,
No stone is left unturned.
And no buddy is left behind.
This could have all been avoided if you just
ordered
ordered on DoorDash.
Not sponsored. Could be sponsored.
Hit us
Order
up.
today.
Hit us up, DoorDash.
We know you want to.
Anyway, DoorDash, call us, beep us. If you want to reach us. Hello, welcome to the Buddie System. Welcome to a very special episode of the Buddie System where we have done no preparation other than watching the scene on repeat.
Amazing.
I don't think anyone actually asked for this. We just told you we were going to do it. So here it is. I hope you've been looking forward to it as much as we have.
You're welcome.
You are welcome. We're gathered here today to talk about the kitchen divorce. The one, the only. It's the one and only kitchen divorce, right? Yes.
Yes. It's not the only kitchen scene, but it is the kitchen divorce.
The only kitchen divorce.
Which sets it apart from all the others. Why is this kitchen scene different than all other kitchen scenes?
Yeah.
We're here to tell you.
We just felt like there was a lot to unpack here. So we didn't really get into it as deep as we normally would in our regular episode covering episode 16 and 17. So we're going to be insane about it
Because
now.
that's what we do.
Yeah. This episode is sponsored by divorce lawyers.
Oh, we're not bringing the lawyers back into this, okay?
The grocery list. I don't know. DoorDash.
This could have all been avoided if you used DoorDash.
If they had sat down together, decide, because they do the list, right? And then you just put the list into DoorDash. And they deliver the groceries to you.
We've established that they are stupid for stupid. Dumb for dumb. Dumb and dumbasser?
Yeah.
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 Ironically, DoorDash could have also fixed the original divorce scene. So, you know what? I say we go with that.
Okay. All right. We're good with it. Yep. So anyway, what we're going to do is watch the scene slowly. Twice.
Not in slow-mo.
Not in slow-mo, but we're going to do a lot of pausing and breaking down stuff. We're going to look at like from Eddie's point of view and from Buck's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Who are we starting with?
Evan Buckley.
Oh my God, you dead named him. Okay, so we'll start with Buck. This camera work is crazy.
Said I was gonna get the groceries. I was out. It's fine. Doesn't feel like it's fine.
Eddie walks in. He doesn't even see Buck's face. He just sees the giant mountain that is Buck Buckley with his back to him, right?
Yes.
And he can just tell by his demeanor and like 5 words that him saying, I was already out. It's fine. Is not actually fine.
The way that Buck is just immediately turned away from Eddie, like, is so telling, and doesn't even like turn to greet him as he comes in to the kitchen. So it's just like, you know,
the tone
he's
of
like
voice.
He's like angling for some sort of something, confrontation. Like, he is just right off the bat, you know, because he doesn't turn around and acknowledge Eddie, who is finally back home.
Yeah.
And everything. He's just like, he's so standoffish, like right off the bat.
He hears him coming in. You're going to hear the door close. You're going to hear the footsteps come into the kitchen. And he's just, putting away the groceries. And like if I'm Buck, right? Like, what do I even say? Because one, I know this thing that you didn't tell me. I'm upset. There's lots of things going on. And it's just like the way he's like putting things away. And like you said, the demeanor. So
very closed off.
It's very closed off, but it doesn't, and this isn't as apparent like his actions necessarily, because like how the camera is kind of cutting it off, or like there's something in the way, but like he doesn't necessarily like slam the cabinet door, but he kind of does, because you can kind of see it like ricochet, and then he's like throwing something on the stove, or not on the stove, but like by
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely an aggressive.
That's
irritated.
Like when he kind of just like shoves the cereal into the cabinet. I know we're not there yet, but it's just like, ugh, like he's just so done.
Yes, he is done.
This is such a quintessential couple thing. Like, I cannot explain this enough. Where like you're having a fight, it's not about the thing you're fighting about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like at the beginning of this, you would be like, oh, they're fighting about the groceries.
That's never about the groceries.
That is the forum in which Buck is serving up the passive aggressiveness. But first of all, if I was Buck, I'd be like, you said you'd get them, but obviously you didn't. Because you just came home, there's no groceries. And it's kind of like that thing where you keep asking your partner to do something and they don't do it, and they don't do it, and they don't do it. And then you finally just angrily, passive aggressively do it. And then at that point, you're angry at them for like not doing that thing, but because they're not following through. Like, it's not even about that thing anymore. It's about not doing the thing that you said that you would do.
A mountain gets made out of a molehill sort of situation.
So that's what we're already facing here just with the groceries.
Do you also think that like, because Buck has had to like, you know, he's in the middle of his like learning to be alone lesson or whatever, he's trying to put forth this like almost like hyper independence sort of thing. It's like that he's not relying on Eddie to get the groceries. He's like, well, I was already out and I have to rely on myself. So I'm going to get the groceries sort of thing because I'm mad at you.
Well, this is where I have to put what I had assumed was the original scene, the original opening of this episode, which was like him getting the groceries. He just took these home because he wasn't able to use them at the firehouse. Right? Yeah, from the stills. Or because originally, I think the way this episode was supposed to open was with him bringing in the groceries because he was going to cook for the 118. But then he opens that refrigerator and he says all the takeout and everything. So it's just like, well, I guess I have these 2 bags of groceries. I'm taking them home.
So it's like on top of him feeling like unnecessary. He's learned this thing about Eddie that Eddie didn't tell him, and he's only heard through the grapevine, and he's just like, well, screw this.
So the way I look at it is, because I like where you're coming from, Sil. But since we don't see that, where I think Buck's head is at is that, well, he better get used to just doing all the shit by himself again anyway, because well, he already knew that Eddie was going to go back, but now he knows that he's going back in like a day or two, like a couple days. So he's like, well, I might as well just start doing all my own shit again. He can't even tell me he's leaving. So like,
how can I rely on him for anything?
How can I rely on him to get the groceries? Yeah.
Okay, point. Yeah.
But I do think you're right, Sil, about like that opening. I do think that's where the groceries came from.
I was out. It's fine.
So he says, I was out. It's fine. And he sounds like he's been crying.
Like his voice is raw.
Yeah. It's all the telltale signs of like, you're choked on emotion. So like, even if he wasn't crying, he's either like really angry or there's some sort of emotion that he is trying to stuff down that's making his voice sound like he's trying to not become too emotional, or that he's trying to like get over having just cried. Sorry, I'm just picturing him in the grocery store.
Oh no.
Oh no.
No. Chance. Oh my God. No crying over spilled milk.
I think about his outbursts in 8-10, where he's actually like expressing all the things that are going wrong, and like because of, you know, how he's been showing his, or technically not showing his grief and all of that, like he's just trying to keep it in. He's still like choking up, but like he's not, he doesn't want to say it. He doesn't want to like express it at all, because what is the point at this point? Especially with him leaving.
It's like he's trying so hard to like maintain whatever semblance of control that he has, which is not to say that there's a lot that he can control right now, especially with everything else going on. But he's so focused on controlling his own emotions so he can be there for everyone else that I think this is just one of those things of like, it's kind of bubbling up and then he's trying to push it right down because nobody can know.
Yeah, because feeling his emotions would be making it about him.
So there must be no emotions.
Right. Because that's how
humanity works.
That's how being there for people who are grieving works. You don't show them your grief at all.
I know.
I feel like it's fine.
Gosh, this silence in that.
I heard
Like,
you finally got the call from El Paso Fire.
Okay, so we just saw Eddie say like it doesn't seem fine, and Buck like kind of rounds the island, like just kind of going past Eddie and going to the other cabinets on the opposite side of the kitchen. And just like the way that they have this blocking for this whole scene, because it's like a very push and pull sort of thing, right? And they continually have Buck try to turn away from Eddie, at least in the beginning of this scene as well. So like we saw when Eddie came in and his back was towards Eddie. And then now Eddie is talking to him, but he's still turning away from Eddie and going to this opposite side. So he's making like as much physical space in the kitchen as possible. And he only kind of like, he has to like steel himself for a second before he like turns around and tells him exactly what's the issue, which is like, I heard not through you all this stuff about, you know, you getting the job at the El Paso Fire Department. It's still like him trying to maintain some control of the conversation. Like he's not going to look at Eddie until he's ready to like confront
him. Yeah. I think he's debating with himself too, whether he wants to or not.
Yeah.
But like knowing him, he just like kind of has to.
Like wrestling within himself, like trying to, again, hold it down. But then it just kind of like bubbles up from out.
But I also think he's thinking of like, should I give him a chance to tell me? But then like thinking about an 808, like how Eddie, he wouldn't have known that Eddie was even planning on moving if he hadn't like accidentally seen it on the iPad.
So like this comes after, you know, the blow of finding out about Eddie moving on the iPad. It comes out after, you know, overhearing Eddie saying like, yeah, the opportunity was LA. Everything that's important or whatever is back in Texas. So this is just like, and all of this happens like within quick succession. Well, I guess Eddie's been gone for a couple ambiguous time here, but
I think it's been like a month and a half, 2 months.
A month-ish or more around there. So it's still like a pretty like condensed time period for all of that like change to happen and for him to like overhear this stuff so indirectly because Eddie is not telling him that kind of big stuff. And he's still so hurt about, I think, just the first one about moving. And if he didn't pick up that tablet,
right,
when would Eddie have told him?
Yeah, I'll dive into that a little more like after he says a line about, oh, but you didn't tell me.
I heard you finally got the call from El Paso Fire. Congratulations.
Oof.
Who told you?
You know what I think about when I hear him say congratulations? I'm like, where's the edit? The Hamilton edit? Congratulations.
Yes! You invented a new kind of stupid. Damage you could never undo kind of stupid.
I'm so glad. Yeah, we're same brain rot.
Really didn't think this through kind of stupid.
That is every time I see that. I'm just like,
Like I just hear her. I'm like,
yes.
I don't know why. I don't even know if it really applies here, but like
it's the energy.
Yeah.
It's the energy. It's a similar cadence with the delivery.
Well, here's the thing. Her delivery is like, I sacrificed my happiness for yours. I devoted myself to you, and this is how you repaid me.
Yeah.
Like, go fuck yourself.
Which actually is kind of similar.
Yeah.
In this instance, because like, here you have Buck. He sacrificed his loft. He's taking over Eddie's lease. He's, you know, making it so easy for Eddie.
And Eddie doesn't have the decency to just tell him. And I get why, but you know.
But here's the thing, is Eddie has never actually given Buck the chance to react to something by telling him himself. So I really think Buck would react better if he was told the thing.
Like directly.
Because not only would it be like, oh, he trusts me, but it would be, oh, I'm important to him for him to open up and tell me this thing.
Exactly.
No, and you know, now that I think about it, because I was like, wait, but what about the will scene? But the will scene is like, he waited. He wasn't going to tell him anyway.
Yes.
And it had to be, you know, Buck had to be in a place where he was like putting his own life in danger to be like, okay, listen, you do matter. Stop trying to get yourself killed. He didn't get the chance to react if he had initially told him, you know.
I don't think that message got across the way that it was supposed to. I think Eddie was trying to say, you're part of my family and important to me. And Buck heard, oh, you're my backup plan. You can't kill yourself.
I guess we can discuss this on Eddie's side when we get there too. But it's this pattern that Buck ends up finding himself in on the other side of these kind of conversations, where he's just kind of like bowled over by something that is either not told to him directly or is just something told to him born out of necessity almost. Yep. Rather than a genuine trust in trying to like confide in Buck, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it too. He didn't confide in him about the Kim thing. He had to find out about that and confront him about that too.
Oh.
He didn't find out about the panic attack thing. He had to find out and confront him about that.
And that's why he pushes.
Yes.
Because he finds out about this stuff and is not told directly. So he feels like so kind of tossed to the side sometimes in these kind of big things.
Yes.
And they're always big things.
He found out when everyone else did. Well, I guess Bobby found out first and then everyone else that he was leaving the 118 in season 5. Didn't discuss with him like what was going on with Chris and like why, you know, that's his best friend. That's his work partner. Like you'd think he would just want to give him a heads up on a respect level of that. And that Buck would understand more than anyone else.
Yeah.
That like it's for Chris.
Which we'll get into this probably a little bit later on. But I think that's one of the reasons why the apology with bringing in Peppa and Christopher is so important, because it does do so much to say like you are part of the family. But it's just like, why does that have to happen after all of this, where Buck feels so just like last thought sort of thing?
Yeah.
I know it feels so bad to like do one-sided, but I'm like, Eddie, I'll get to you.
So he like looks at Eddie while Eddie has his back to him and kind of like jaw open, then clenches it and then kind of shakes his head and is like, fuck it.
Like stealing himself for this confrontation.
Yeah. And then he says, I heard you finally got the call from El Paso Fire. Congratulations. He still sounds like he has been crying, or I don't know. Like that tone to his voice was there the entire time. And I just like, I want to know what Oliver was thinking like while he did this scene. Cause it adds a lot to it for me. Cause it doesn't sound like Buck. It sounds so like small.
Amongst other things. Like I feel like he's just like defeated at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just sounds so small.
He's utilizing so much energy and keeping, like we said, all of his emotions so far down that he doesn't have enough energy to like project his voice, that it's just kind of like a little bit, there's like a little bit of that fry on there. He just cannot find it within himself to like pull up enough energy.
Yeah.
Because he's already defeated.
So Eddie gets jump scared when he says like, I heard, congratulations. And he looks spooked. And I'm trying to decide, because we don't see Buck's face right when he has that reaction. But I'm like, I know me, I would feel some sort of satisfaction in like him finding out something, you know, in a roundabout way.
Like almost like he's one-upping him. It's like, you didn't tell me, but I found this out anyway. What do you think about that?
Who told you?
Eddie says, who told you? Like, I feel like that set the tone for the rest of this conversation. Because I feel like he could have started with, I was going to tell you.
Yeah.
But I think instead of the who told you, kind of has the same energy of like,
well, how'd you find out?
No, in 809, he's like, you were spying on me.
Oh,
yeah. It's like, bro.
It's accusatory.
Yeah. You found out, or you heard a thing that I didn't want you to hear.
Let's see. Hen told Chimney that she wanted to throw you a surprise barbecue. Chimney told Ravi, and Ravi called me because he wanted to know if he should bring a gift.
I was gonna tell you.
Yeah, but you didn't, did you? No, instead.
He looks like he's pacing his enclosure, but he's still just angrily putting the groceries
Well,
Yeah.
and it's like the kitchen is so like bifurcated, right? Because now they're on these opposite sides of the kitchen, and Buck is pacing that one side and not crossing over, right? They are very separate, and they are for most of this scene where there isn't, crossing over that invisible boundary, right? So he is kind of like, he's making the most of his space, which is an even smaller space than the small kitchen usually is. It's such a tiny kitchen. He's explaining this like chain of events of so-and-so to so-and-so to so-and-so to me. And all of this, I think, is to say,
you told every single person except me.
I don't know that he did tell every single person. I think it went through one person and through
It was a whole game of telephone here.
I think the takeaway from this piece of dialogue here, like I'm assuming everybody assumed that Buck already knew, because that's why Ravi asked Buck like if he should bring a gift, and not, any question about that. So it's his hurt of not hearing, first of all, is compounded by the assumption, rightly so, of everybody else that Buck was the first one to know, when in reality he's the last one to know. So that's a hard pill to swallow, because he's hearing not even just like, he's hearing it so down the line of telephone.
Also, Chimney, my man, at the scene of the crime once again.
And Ravi being at the scene.
Well, yeah, Ravi is also at the scene of the crime, but he just genuinely doesn't know that he's stepping in it.
Yeah,
no,
but like for Chimney to tell Hen, like,
well, for Hen to tell Chimney was like, Chimney, why?
Yeah,
why did you do that?
Yeah, and considering
they're gossip girls, we've said that
she knew she was outing Eddie with that.
But yeah, he's just so aggravated. Not even aggravated, just frustrated that everybody else.
No, he's angry. He's trying to be chill, but like he's bad at it.
It's like a quiet anger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a simmer, not a rolling boil.
Yeah, because I don't think he's kind of like what I said earlier. He's not going to allow himself to do that. It's not the same. We're not in the same circumstances that we were literally like 7 episodes ago.
So the lighting in this is so...
We haven't even talked about that.
I know.
The lighting is so crazy. Like, so when he's saying this, when he's like doing the pacing thing and he's delivering not the accusation, he's just telling him like, here's how I found out. This thing that you should have told me your fucking self. It's like he's under bright, very blue,
harsh,
cold, fluorescent lighting, which we've never seen that kitchen look cool toned before.
No, this is so interesting the way they lit this whole scene, because it is very cold.
Clinical.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great word for it. It does feel very clinical, and just like these white kind of fluorescent, very overhead. So you get these intense shadows as well. And it really helps to illustrate how frosty this whole interaction is. And it is so unusual for this kitchen, which is so often just like a very like diffused, warm lighting. And one of the interesting things that I really am fascinated by in this whole scene in the kitchen is that there's secondary lighting, right? So you have these like really cold, harsh overhead lightings when they get closer to the island.
Yeah, because there's a light above that.
And it kind of like almost washes things out. But then if you look back to the other side of the kitchen where there's Eddie, there's this like warm light over the kitchen sink, and I think like some of like over the stove as well, which are on, and those are warmer. So it really gives that kind of like contrast, is almost like off-putting on purpose, right? Because like this is supposed to be a warm, like welcoming environment, and right now it is so the opposite of that. But it's like, it's kind of still giving like, this is what it usually is, this is what it can be at another time, but you have to like wade through this weird like juxtaposition of the cold and warm lighting.
And not to mention that like the sides that they're on. So like Buck, I feel like, is more on the cooler side of the kitchen, and Eddie, even though it's like, so it's a smaller light or like it's a lot dimmer on that side, but he is nearby the bit of warmth that we have in there. And then obviously as the scene progresses, he goes more into the shadows, I would say.
Yeah. That is an interesting thing too, because you have Buck, again, like we said, pacing his enclosure, but he's going from like that very corner of the kitchen where the light doesn't touch him as much.
Mhm.
And then he moves, like the blocking of this whole scene is so fascinating. So he moves from like the darker corner of the kitchen to the island, which is flooded with that like bright, colder light. And then he goes back. So it's like, it's this dance almost that both of them do. Like they're in the shadows kind of their feelings. And then they come closer to the middle and retreat again a little bit, like at different times. It's fascinating. And this is all done with like a handheld camera, which gives it an even more like intimate
because it's
feel.
unstable.
And because it's unstable, it's a little shaky.
It's shaky.
It's not sturdy as if it's on a rig or anything like that, which is such an interesting choice because I don't think they usually do handheld cameras.
I think it's all very close up shots too.
Yes.
Whereas like normally we have like a medium or a wider shot, and then, you know, the coverage of both actors close up. In most of this, you don't see them in one shot, and most of them are close ups.
Yeah. Like it's either the waist up or like busts.
Yeah.
Which are still pretty close. That's really showing the physicality of the space that they're in, that we are in, because now it's like we are in that scene. Everything, all of the choices that are being made with the camera.
It's very immersive.
And the movement. Exactly. It's like we are there witnessing.
You're like, you're not watching a show. You're in this fight right now.
Yeah.
This is why everyone is like, I feel like I'm interrupting something or I should not be watching this.
I was so deeply uncomfortable the first time I watched this.
Yeah. It's so purposeful. It puts you right in there. Like you are watching this fight happen in front of your own eyes. And it's like, I should not be here to see this right now. This does not pertain to me. The camera movement does that. The proximity of the shots as well. It's just, you are in it with them. And it makes the small kitchen feel even more crowded.
Yeah.
Because it's not just two people. It's like great.
I was gonna tell you.
Yeah, but you didn't, did you? No, instead everyone has been tiptoeing around behind my back because apparently I'm too fragile to accept truth.
Can you blame me? Look
Hold
how
on.
you're acting now.
So Eddie says, I was going to tell you. And then Buck starts with the pointing. And he's really angry. He's got some really angry facial expressions happening here. And his voice, this is kind of like the strongest we hear his voice. I think this is in this entire conversation.
Yeah.
But he's like, yeah, but you didn't, did you? No, instead, everyone has been tiptoeing around my back because apparently I'm too fragile to accept the truth.
He's just really like laying out exactly how frustrated he is with the whole situation. And part of it is of his own making. Everyone is tiptoeing around him because they think he's too fragile, because he's trying so hard to be what everybody else needs him to be, which is what he thinks is like strong and stoic and okay. Which is not what everybody needs him to be. They need him to be himself. So he's in this weird feedback loop of, I'm trying to be there for everybody by being like strong, and everybody else is handling me like with kid gloves and thinking that I'm weak, but I'm being so strong. I'm being so brave for them right now. Like,
So brave.
Oh no.
and I think he has a lot of frustration with that as well.
Just feel like he's like, nothing is ever good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's trying so hard, but he's getting nothing in return. So what he's trying to do, which is what Bobby told him to do, which was the last things that Bobby said to him, and it's not working. And again, it's feeding into this like feeling of being unnecessary for Buck, which he's already sensitive to, because nobody's like talking to him and nobody's like, you know, confiding in him. But it's that thing, because he's closed himself off so much with that. Well, that's going to close off other people, but he doesn't realize that, he doesn't realize that's why. And so he's frustrated with that.
You really think I wouldn't have been happy for you?
No, I know you wouldn't be. You make it all about you. The trials and tribulations of Evan Buckley. A tragedy in 97 acts.
So then Buck hits him back with like, you really think I wouldn't have been happy for you? Because like, hello, I'm subletting this place for you because I knew you needed to be with Christopher. I've supported you the whole time you're in El Paso, you know, helping you decide to stay there when you wanted to run at the first sign of things not working out.
Mm-hmm.
Telling you to dad up, helping you get your kid back, but you think I wouldn't have been happy for you? He's done nothing but be supportive of Eddie. Like, yes, he crashed out, but ultimately he is doing nothing but supporting Eddie.
And I think he looks like when Eddie says the whole trials and tribulations thing, I think Buck kind of looks really taken aback.
Yeah.
Because it does a quick shot to his reaction and he's just kind of like, what?
He's like, whoa.
Yeah. He kind of like takes a moment.
Me and you, bro.
Yeah. And he's like, where's this coming from?
Yeah.
You've been spiraling since the funeral. And no one knows how to talk to you about it.
Sorry, I'm sad that Bobby's dead.
In the direct aftermath of like the trials and tribulations of Evan Buckley, and Eddie says, you know, that Buck has been spiraling since the funeral and nobody knows how to talk to you about it, which is true. That is exactly what Buck had just said. Like, everybody's been treating him so fragile. And then Buck says in like such a, I'm sorry, it's kind of bratty.
It is a little.
So he says, sorry, I'm sad that Bobby's dead. This elicits a strong reaction. It's like he's finally saying his actual emotions, but he's saying it in such like a blasé way. Like, sorry, I'm sad that Bobby's dead. Like, everybody else is kind of like, seems like they're moving on. Seems like they don't need me.
I think he's just kind of like, what do you want from me? That's what that's giving to me. Sorry, I'm sad he's dead. Like, what are you, like, what kind of action are you looking for me in order for you to tell me things? I think he's just like at the end of his rope here. Like, he's been trying to hold it together. This ticked him off. And like this response of like, can you blame us for treating you like this? Like, you've been spiraling. And he's like, what else would I be doing? And I've been trying so hard to like not do that. So I think he really is just like, what do you want from me?
I think,
so yeah, the brattiness just come out because he's like, it's flippant. Because it's like, what the fuck else can I do at this point?
I think it's also Buck's reaction to everybody else seeming fine. Like, he did those like psychological grief assessments on everybody and they had like whatever scores. So it seems like they're doing okay. So I think Buck is also feeling in his like trying to be there for everybody and nobody like leaning on him, that everybody else is not as upset about Bobby dying as he is, because he's trying so hard to like keep it down and keep it under control so that he can be there for everyone else. But everyone else is doing like kind of okay. They're like starting to move on with lives and just like go about normalcy as much as they can. And Buck's just sitting there, just watching that happen and being like, how can you go about normal things when Bobby's dead? Like, I'm like gutted about it, but he can't show it. And this is why they're in this situation.
I think it's not even like, how can you go about normal things? It's like, how can everyone else,
or ignore it?
How can everyone else like go about business as usual, but also all of the things that kept us together, united as a family, we don't do anymore?
Yes, that plays into it, definitely.
Which were the only things, let's be clear, that Buck was a part of, because he doesn't go home with them to their nuclear families.
No.
So like the 118 as a family for Buck is at work where they are supposed to eat together. And then like at like get-togethers, which we see none of other than like the actual fucking funeral.
I think Buck is feeling the fracturedness more than anybody else.
Oh yeah.
Well, besides Eddie, but because he doesn't have anyone else to like go home to for that extra like pillar of support.
Of Evan Buckley, a tragedy.
His face when he says that.
You make it all about you. The trials and tribulations of Evan Buckley, a tragedy. In 97 acts. You've been spiraling since the funeral. And no one knows how to talk to you about it.
Sorry, I'm sad that Bobby's dead.
He kind of says it with a like a shitty little slight bratty smirk too.
Yeah,
He says, Sorry, I'm sad. Like, it is really fucking snarky.
Play it again.
You've been spiraling since the funeral. And no one knows how to talk to you about it.
Sorry, I'm sad that Bobby's dead.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm having a hard time finding the not the article, but just like the actual quote about it.
Video.
Oh, then I'm definitely gonna have a hard time looking for it. I know it's the Kat Pettibone interview, but he definitely got a note to make it more bratty, for sure.
I'll find that video.
You're not the only one that lost him. We all lost him. And we're just trying to do our damn best to get through it.
Yeah, I know.
Really?
Buck has this habit. He pokes Bear, immediately feels bad about poking Bear. Every single time. Like, whenever he, and it's normally Eddie, where he says something kind of snarky or kind of mean to, and then sees the reaction and is immediately like, oh, that was mean. Oh, I feel bad about that.
Like he's trying to square up, and then it's just like, that was not a good move.
Yeah, you see that in 809 when he like he's like, well, you're not the only one who can do that. About leaving, about moving, just out of nowhere,
Yeah.
And he's like, oh.
Buck was bratty, and immediately, this is the most emotion that I think he's seen about Eddie's grief from Eddie the entire time.
Oh, 100%.
So he immediately is like, oh, fuck, I feel really bad.
I pushed too hard.
Like that. He looks like a kicked puppy.
We're just trying to do our damn best to get through it.
As soon as Eddie says we're just trying our damn best to get through it, and he turns his back to him, and it cuts back to Buck.
Really? Because you never.
He literally is like, oh, I am a puppy who knows he did wrong, and like his head
hangs
falls.
his head. Yeah.
Yep.
And you can also see like he kind of almost shrinks back into that corner of the cabinets again.
Yeah.
You know, when as opposed to when he said like that bratty thing of like, sorry, I'm sad Bobby's dead. He like puffs himself up a little bit, like to take up more space and stand his ground. And then right after, this, he shrinks back into himself a little bit more. But it's interesting though, because it seems like he's so much more open and receptive to now hearing what Eddie has to say, because he's not turned away from him anymore. He is actually facing him. Like his head isn't, but like he has an open ear, and like his body language is more open. He's just kind of like, okay, I pushed too far. I overstepped. Let me take a step back so I can listen now.
Our damn best to get through it.
Yeah, I know.
Really? Because you never asked what it was like. Waking up in the middle of the night to that news. Sitting alone in the dark. Trying to keep it together so I don't scare the crap out of my kid. And when he woke up, I had to tell him another person he loved was dead.
I'm sorry.
After, Buck is a little more open and receptive to actually hearing what Eddie was going through, because, Buck didn't ask what Eddie was going through. So this is the time where Eddie is finally telling him something directly.
Yep.
And you see kind of how much that wrecks Buck to hear.
Yeah.
That like and I think he is also realizing, I didn't know so much was going on under that surface.
Well, yeah, and that's what prompted Eddie to like open up and say what that felt like for him, because Buck says, like, after Eddie goes, we all lost him, we're just trying to do our best to get through it, and Buck's like, yeah, I know. And he's like, really? Because you never asked. And you don't see a lot of coverage of Buck like while Eddie is saying this, but like the shots that you do, like he looks pretty devastated.
Yeah. like really taken aback.
Just because I don't think he thought about it. I think he's been so focused on trying to be okay that he hasn't thought about how to actually be there for the people who need him.
No.
And I feel like as Eddie's describing all of this, he's having I feel like there's a moment where it kind of hits him like what he's describing in which it's something that has happened before because, when Eddie has his breakdown.
Yes.
And Buck not being there.
Mm-hmm.
And Eddie Eddie's describing how like he has taken steps to not have that be a repeat moment. And he's like, oh yeah. Like, and then getting hit with the fact that Christopher could have witnessed something similar.
Yeah.
He's hearing that not only Eddie is being impacted by this, but Christopher as well. There's like more layers and layers. And he's like, oh.
And I think so much of it is like, because Buck's not a selfish person.
No.
He just has a harder time putting himself mentally in a different POV, right? But that doesn't mean that he can't. It just means that's not his immediate, and it doesn't mean that he doesn't like have empathy, because obviously he does. It's just not as practiced as some other people. So he needs to be like kind of prompted or told these things so he can actually understand what someone else is going through.
Was dead. Oh. I'm sorry. I know it was important to you too.
He saved my life. And I wasn't there to save his. That part of me will always wonder, if I was there, could I have made a difference?
You don't think I did everything I could to save him?
I don't know, Buck. I wasn't there.
You don't think I did everything I could to save him?
Okay, so Buck apologizes after Eddie explains what it was like for him. He says, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like, I know he was important to you too." I don't think it's that he didn't realize that
Bobby's importance.
No, I just think that it's like he was going about this so clinically that he wasn't. I think there is a hyper empathetic part of Buck, but I think he shut that down because that's attached to his feeling things. And since he's not letting himself feel things, this is what I wanted to say. Because you were saying a thing and I was like, I don't think that's quite correct.
I know.
Yeah, I'm sure you could see my face. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I wasn't explaining it well.
I think when he shuts down that part of himself because he's trying to operate more based off of logic, right? So he's not dwelling in his emotions. So like clipboard Buck, right? Just to kind of have an easy touchstone for what that looks like. It's just that he's looking at things from just logical steps, processes, paperwork. So he's probably Googling like, how do I support people going through grief, and like doing that and giving people tests for their grief index. Like he's trying to go about it in some sort of like professional psychological, like a psychiatrist kind of way. And I think that's why he can't kind of see the forest for the trees, especially with Eddie, because it's like, he's a 12, so it's not that the empathy is gone. It's just that that part of his brain is kind of switched off in order for him to be functioning the way that he thinks he needs to be functioning right now.
Yeah. No, that's a much better way of explaining it. Because I was like, it's not that he doesn't have empathy. It's just that he's not able to
access that empathy.
Yeah.
I think he can operate off of one thing at a time, logic or emotion. Like, I don't think he can do both.
Never the twain shall meet.
No. And I think it's and I mean, it's just my headcanon, but like, I think he's ADHD. So I think he's like, I know it's widely accepted, including Oliver, that he has ADHD, but I also think he's on the spectrum. So that is kind of like something that ADHD people experience, where it's like, we are very highly empathetic people. We have like this hypervigilant sense of justice and like really want to be there for people, but also like, if we're in the mode of that logic and looking at things black and white, it's hard to reach it. Like, you kind of have to like be smacked back into someone else's experience, kind of like this.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, okay.
And I think that's what was lacking in his approach as a whole. It's just like, because he was reverting to so like logical, clinical, like removed, it took out all of the personal connection to it too, which is what really put up that, I think, blockade between him and everybody else, but especially with Eddie, because they couldn't get through that either. And like, he was trying to do that, but it was backfiring so much because that like wall was up that prevented the connection of connecting with everyone else's emotions. Just took it right off the table.
You don't think I did everything I could to save him?
So he apologizes, and then Eddie says, he saved my life and I wasn't there, and a part of me is always going to wonder, if I was there, could I have made a difference? And this is really where I feel Buck really misstepped. And I think it's the only part of this where he is unjustifiably making it about himself. Because Eddie just was so vulnerable, like tearing himself open to talk about this, needing Buck to be Buck. And instead, Buck hears it as like an accusation.
Yeah.
And it's not about him. It's literally not about him at all. It's about Eddie, but he's projecting because he feels like it's his fault.
Right.
So
like, they both feel like it's their fault.
They both feel like it's their fault. So he's like, you don't think I did everything I could to save him? And it's like, Buck, baby boy, that's not what was being said here.
There's a little part of me, like, I agree with that 100%. There's like a teeny tiny part of me that also kind of thinks that, especially in the wake of, we were just talking about how Eddie doesn't tell him things directly. So that makes Buck sometimes feel that like that Eddie doesn't trust him to be able to tell these things. There's a little part of me that thinks he's posing this, you don't think that I did everything I could, almost as a question, because he's like, you don't believe that I'm trustworthy enough, or you don't think that I'm trustworthy enough to,
that's where it's coming from,
to do what I can, because
he's already in that headspace right now.
Yeah, but also because like right now, Eddie doesn't trust him enough to tell him these big things. So he's writing himself off in Eddie's name in his own mind. It's like, well, this is just another thing that Eddie couldn't rely on me to do, sort of thing. So I think it's a little layered there.
I think that's for sure the motivation of why he feels like it's an accusation. For sure. When Eddie says things, when he actually out loud says things, he rarely says things that he doesn't just mean at face value. And yet Buck will take it the wrong way.
It's kind of like, what we've been seeing from like Poppy's goodbye to this. So it's an established pattern. He actually this season he kind of has done that a lot. Again, I keep thinking about 809. Like, I feel like this was kind of like it is their parallel episode. So 809 and 817 is the parallel episode. So it's one of those things where he hears something and he takes it, and I don't know, he just takes it in the most Buck way possible. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is actually a great scene to look at if you want to see what rejection sensitive dysphoria or RSD looks like.
Oh, he absolutely has RSD.
Yeah. Yes. So if you don't know what RSD is, it's something that you can have without having ADHD, but it's very like common in people with ADHD. And basically it's like you get an intense, like overwhelming emotional response that sometimes feels physically painful at any perceived or actual rejection, criticism, failure. It's normally like disproportionate emotional reactions to situations that are not normally rejection.
Yeah, it's like big
like
reaction
even if
to
it's like minor
things.
things. Yeah, like it can be big things, but a lot of the time it's little things.
Exacerbated.
And it's just your brain taking that as, oh, I failed. oh, they're rejecting me. Oh,
they hate
negative
me.
thing about me.
Yeah.
And then it's, you know, your nervous system is like, oh, I'm going to take it from here. So I think that's what's happening here. And I think that's what's happening a lot of the time when we see Buck do this kind of spiral, especially with Eddie.
Yeah. Because it feels like a rejection. And I think this is like the straw that breaks the camel's back on the rest of his feeling of rejection, because nobody else is leaning on him or relying on him in that way. So this is just kind of like this scene with Eddie is all of that just really concentrated and funneled in to like one person.
Yeah.
I don't know, Buck. I wasn't there.
So the scene just ends with
Eddie leaving the kitchen.
Eddie leaving and Buck kind of just looking just like despondent. Like off to the side.
Like that did not go as planned.
I don't think that he thought it was going to go well.
No.
I don't think he thought it was going to go that poorly, probably.
Like it was even worse than he imagined.
Oh,
probably, yeah.
So he's like, oh, great.
Because he wasn't thinking that like Eddie was doing this badly or feeling all of this.
No, because he's a 12.
He's fine.
All right. Are we ready for Edmundo?
Oh, boy.
Said I was gonna get the groceries.
I was out. It's fine.
The beginning of the scene cracks me the fuck up because it is literally just so married. It is literally so we have been married for years. And we're having a passive aggressive fight about just asinine bullshit.
I do love also, though, that when Eddie enters the kitchen, we get this like POV shot. And that's one of the reasons why we know it's a shaky cam or a handheld cam. Because it's a POV shot, so it pans over to the island with the groceries and then over to Buck. So it's like we are inhabiting Eddie in this moment, just kind of like taking stock of what we're walking into here. And we already know, like we mentioned with Buck, we already know like right off the bat, it is kind of a hostile environment.
Well, and the body language for Eddie is he's walking with his hands in his pockets.
Yeah.
Which is a weird thing to do in your own home, like in your pants pockets.
Well, not really his home right now.
Well, I know, that's what I'm saying. It's very like protective, like defensive.
It looks like he was whatever he was just doing, wherever he's just coming back from. It looks like he was doing a lot of like contemplation, right? Because he kind of had that like in his head look as he's walking in. Maybe
he was contemplating actually telling him. Except people beat him to it.
Yeah. And I do also love that like he's seeing Buck, put the groceries away. He doesn't go and help at all. He doesn't like reach into the bag. No, he just goes and gets a cup of coffee. So
because he's pissed immediately because he's like, I said I would do that. It's the same thing where I was like from Buck's point of view, where I was like, when you ask your partner, you're going to do a thing and they don't do it. It's the opposite, where you're like, I told you I would do it and you doing it for me.
You didn't let me do it for you. So he's like, fine, I'm going to let you do the groceries. Let me pour myself a cup of coffee. But also, as he's walking in and says I was going to get the groceries, he removes his jacket. So you already see this kind of like peeling of a layer, right? So we're already seeing visually that like kind of say that like, because Buck has his sweater and a t-shirt on, and I think Eddie's is just like the jacket and the is it a Henley? So he's like removing this layer, so he's like getting ready to be like more vulnerable in a way.
But Buck's like, I was out already. It's fine. And he's like reaching into the cupboard and shaking his head. Like you can barely see it, but he's like, God. You can tell he's rolling his eyes, even though you can only see the back of his head.
And they're still like backs turned to each other. And
well, he's sneaking a glance at him.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel like it's fine.
And he sneaks a glance at him before he's like, doesn't feel like it's fine.
Yeah.
which is, I'm sorry.
To kind of like prompt something, but it's just like, that's so passive aggressive too. Doesn't feel like it's fine.
Such a married thing. It's such a cohabitating with someone thing.
Like, it doesn't even feel passive aggressive. I just feel like, oh, well, this is a way to.
Like it's fine. It's kind of like passive aggressive adjacent.
Yeah.
Like he's opening the door to the dialogue and the conversation, but he's doing it in not like the most open way. Like he's coming into it with a little bit of like a, well, you're angry at me. Okay. Tell me why, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's giving very much, I'm not a mind reader, but everything about you is not giving fine right now. The tone, the vibes, they're off.
But it's also part of the issue, part of the greater issue, right? Because Buck isn't confiding in anybody his feelings because, again, he's pushing them so far down. So Eddie's just like, I know you're not fine. You're not telling me about it.
It's just one of the most hilarious married fucking things they've ever written for them, to me. It brings me so much joy.
The writers of this episode, I'm pretty sure it's Molly Green and James Leffler.
Yeah.
Incredible work.
Yeah. Comment on the episode, like on wherever you're watching it or on social media. If you are in a long-term relationship, how often do you say, doesn't seem like it's fine? To your partner. I'm just curious. Because I'm at least like 2-3 times a week.
Yeah, it's like, and it doesn't even have to be that same wording. It's like, you don't seem okay.
Yeah.
Are you good?
Yeah. Where it's like, there's like, they say something and the tone's off and it's like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Are you sure about that?
Sure.
Like, is there something you're not telling me? And it's just, it's just that prompting and that reaching to try, like, across the aisle almost of like, tell me something because this is obviously not okay. And I'm trying to get, like, reach you emotionally. But you're giving me nothing.
I heard you finally got the call from El Paso Fire.
As Eddie is pouring himself some coffee, you know, both of their backs are turned, and Buck drops the whole, like, congratulations on the job from, you know, El Paso. And it is comedic.
Is such deer in headlights.
It's so funny the way Eddie responds to that, like the mug almost up to his lips, and then it frees.
If he had been mid-sip, it would have been like a mild spit take. It would have been like a, I feel. He was spooked.
No, he was like caught, like red-handed, like handed the cookie jar.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
That's exactly what this is.
Buck's gotcha face. Oh God.
Yeah, like, oh no, it's oh shit.
He's not I didn't even notice that. It's so minute. So like Eddie's like, oh, face, and then Buck's like tiny little minute nod, like, yeah,
I know.
That's what I fucking thought.
Yeah, which kind of goes with what we just said about that. Just like he was really like angling for that like gotcha moment.
Yeah.
And he did, and Eddie's just like, oh no. He has to do like some damage control. He chooses like kind of like the worst thing to say, where I think earlier you said like he doesn't go for, I was gonna tell you, I just wasn't ready yet, which would have probably sidestepped a lot of this, but he decides to say, who told you?
And he says it while he looks away from Buck. Like he looks up at him,
because he's ashamed.
Looks up, looks back down, takes a sip. Right after asking who told you.
Now he's like caught with his tail between his legs because it's like he didn't get a chance to tell Buck, but also the time for that has long since passed, and now he has to like scramble to figure out, okay, how can I make this better, or how can we like, you know, come to an understanding of it. Eddie in this instance or at this point in the conversation, it's almost like he's on the defensive and Buck is on the offense. And those roles do change as the conversation goes on.
He's also looking for the path of least resistance. So he's just kind of letting Buck talk because
that's what Buck does.
He doesn't want to step in it more than he already has.
Let's see. Hen told Chimney that she wanted to throw you a surprise barbecue. Chimney told Ravi, and Ravi called me because he wanted to know if he should bring a gift.
I was gonna tell you.
Yeah, but you didn't.
And there,
And he gives the big doe eyes, like almost pleading eyes emoji. I was going to tell you.
that's what he should have led with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Not who
what he
told
should've-
you. Because it's such a like an accusatory. And again, it really reminds me of you were spying on me.
I was going to tell you, and you found out before I was ready to tell you. But then that leads to the question of, well, when were you going to be ready to tell him?
Yeah.
Because that's the issue that we've run into so many times before. It's like Eddie waits too long to say something, and then it blows up in his face. And I think that is partially because of him like doing that, like trying to choose the path of least resistance thing, but it keeps blowing up in his face. And he should know by now.
No. Learn from his own mistakes. So he's looking at him like pleading, like, please be the good buck. Please be the buck that I need right now.
It's also
and
like
then when
he
he's
has
like,
all but it's also like an oh shit, because like he's hearing how he found out, and it's like a whole list of people, and he's like, oh fuck. Like I really fucked up.
Yeah.
His face is open when he's like, I was gonna tell you, but Buck immediately rebuttals with that. Yeah, but you didn't, did you? And then we get,
Which is fair.
and then we get the now we're fighting. Now we're fighting. The squint.
The eyebrow just like went down.
Yes.
The eyebrow furrow of like
it went from like a relaxed, like big pleading eyes to like kind of like the fuck ass eyebrow emoji, like straight face emoji.
No, it's okay. So it's him realizing, okay, this is how we're going this is how we're going to deal with this. Okay, let me get into fight mode. Like,
yeah. Because he's already cooking up trials and tribulations.
Exactly.
He's working on it.
Exactly. So
he's like, let me go into my Rolodex of dramatic gay shit to say.
All right, this is how we're going to address this.
Bet.
Exactly. I've got stuff in my back pocket that I've been holding on to. No. Like, because if there's one thing that we know, sometimes it's that if there's one thing that we know, it's that Eddie, when he's grieving, he gets angry.
Oh, that man is a scorpion ready to strike back when when the time calls for it.
He lives in that anger sometimes, and it really doesn't come out too often.
Rising?
Scorpio moon.
Oh, moon? Okay.
So those emotions where all the grief is. Yeah. He's waiting.
He's waiting for the opportunity. And he's also, I think, kind of maybe hoping that like if he goes kind of for the jugular, which we know that he does. That will also elicit a reaction from Buck as well. So I think as much as like Buck is pushing Eddie is pushing Buck too. It's again, it's that push-pull. It's that offense, defense. And I think this is where it kind of like starts to swap, right?
I think they're both pushing at each other because I think they're both just like, we're not our normal selves. And like, they're not comfortable with that. And so they're kind of trying to like poke each other to like get them to be what they normally are, even if it's like in an angry way.
No, instead everyone has been tiptoeing around behind my back because apparently.
Sorry, it's just so funny.
Oh, it's so sassy. It's a drama.
Yeah. But like when Buck says, you've been tiptoeing around my back and doing the point thing, right? Eddie whips his head to the side to look away from him and move as far to the complete opposite side of the kitchen, as far away as he can possibly be.
They are complete like diagonals, like the furthest points in the kitchen that they can be.
Also, I find the dialogue, again, because I keep saying this is like the parallel episode. So like we had in 809 also Buck saying something around the lines of like you only say things around behind my back.
Yes.
And so we have a repeat, we have a callback to that. Not really callback, but more like a repeat of that. So Eddie's heard that before. So he's like, okay, he's already making it about himself. Which
it's like triggering for Eddie.
It's triggering. And no, but also like Oliver has said that it is kind of like, I don't know if he used the word trauma, but he did say trauma. But he did say that that's how Eddie see it. That's how Eddie sees it.
How he finds out is about him. So I think he's justified.
Yeah. I'm not saying he isn't. I'm just
right. I think he's justified in being like, why can't you fucking tell me things, bro?
But it's also a little bit of a fallback for Eddie to say like, oh, you're making these things about yourself, because this is what, at least 3 times,
but it's
4
not,
times.
It's but Eddie making things about Buck. It's Eddie making things about Buck. We saw at the beginning of the episode he was making it about Buck. He's literally at the Wilson residence being like, I'm worried about Buck's level of worry, and I was hoping his new captain could tell him that I got the firefighting job
because he doesn't want to tell him directly. So it like,
but he's making it about Buck. Like that whole conversation, it was about Buck.
Well, yeah, because like Eddie makes this about Buck because he refuses to go directly to Buck. So then Buck's reaction to that is to make it about himself, because there has to be something about him that makes Eddie not want to tell him these things.
Yep.
But for Eddie, he doesn't really like understand that. So he's just, I think he's also like really deflecting, saying, oh, you're making it about you again. It's like, because you are.
Yep.
And he doesn't know, he doesn't understand that's what he's creating that problem himself too.
He literally does all of this shit to himself.
Yeah.
Around behind my back, because apparently I'm too fragile to accept the truth.
Can you blame us? Look how you're acting now.
You really think I wouldn't have been happy for you?
No, I know you wouldn't be. You make it all about you. The trials and tribulations of Evan Buckley. A tragedy in 97 acts.
Oh my God. So these lines that Eddie says to Buck, where Buck's like, what, you wouldn't think that I would be happy for you? And Eddie just says, no, I know you wouldn't be, which on one point is kind of fair, because he's acknowledging that like Buck doesn't have to be okay with everything all the time, which Buck has said, in 809 and 10, like, yeah, he's mad, but he's trying to be brave about it. Being angry about it isn't going to help the situation. So like in 809, where Eddie's like, if you're pissed, just be pissed.
Yeah.
So like, I think he's basically using his own words and Buck's own feelings like against him in this.
Yes.
In this instance, which again, this whole thing is going for the jugular, and it works. Yep. And then you get into like the trials and tribulations of Evan Buckley in 97 acts, and like that is Shakespearean level.
That's
the stinger.
That's a gay roast. Like this is a homosexual roasting of Evan Buckley.
How did he come up with that?
At this point, I feel like he got it from the telenovelas he's been watching.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
He felt the spirit like move through him.
It's like, I have to be the most like dramatic. I have to give you the most dramatic comeback possible.
Yeah. Yep. And this is where like it's fully switched to like he's on the offense now. Buck is taking all of that in, like, and I just love like he has the hand up in the air too, like this is a to be or not to be question. Like,
yeah, it really is.
Like this is Hamlet level. Like
yes. He's got the skull.
What the hell? Yeah. Oh, Yorick.
And just a fun little tidbit that like this could be on purpose, but probably isn't, but is just kind of funny that one of our Patreon subscribers, Britt, came up with.
Oh yeah.
That because like it is Shakespearean, right? Like we've all been saying that. Sonnet 97.
Oh my God.
Because like he wrote plays, so like Shakespeare, but he also wrote poems,
which are often like love poems.
Yes. So this was about one of his male lovers who like, and they were separated and apart.
Shut up. Yeah, Britt was so smart for this.
It's kind of hilarious.
Yeah. You know-
I hope they did that on purpose.
And I know, like, we just watched Boy Next Door, right?
Oh God. Yeah,
Yeah.
Ryan's character is obsessed with, what was it?
The Iliad or the Odyssey. It was like Achilles, whichever one that belongs to.
So I don't know. I just found it funny.
Yeah.
The connection here is just kind of funny
yeah.
because if it wasn't really telenovelas that inspired this,
It's the Greek tragedy.
it's just
Yeah.
maybe at some point when he was growing up, he really liked English.
English
You know?
lit, yeah.
yeah, English lit.
Like, this is his time to perform, which is actually, that makes sense because that is so much of what Eddie does, just like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
in general. So actually,
He
so
does
like
wear a
this
lot
kind of,
masks.
it's like he's putting on this performance to get like there's real feelings there. It's rooted very much in reality of like how
Mhm.
Eddie's feeling, but he's kind of like putting on this performance to goad Buck into revealing more of Buck's true emotions because he's so walled off.
Yep.
So he's
Mhm.
like, I know this is gonna sting. I'm gonna do it anyway, and I'm gonna get this reaction out of you. Because how else am I going to reach you otherwise? And so much of this scene is Eddie reaching out to Buck because he feels like he hasn't been able to.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You've been spiraling since the funeral. And no one knows how to talk to you about it.
Sorry, I'm sad that Bobby's dead.
I'm never getting it.
You're not the only one that lost him. We all lost him.
After like the trials and tribulations of Evan Buckley, which like is a crazy line. Then we have, Eddie rounding the kitchen
Closing
island
the distance.
onto Buck's side of the kitchen. So he is closing the distance physically and emotionally at the same time, getting closer and closer to Buck and saying like, you've been spiraling since the funeral and nobody knows how to talk to you about it. And I think there's so much where like Eddie just knows how and when Buck is spiraling, and he's there for Buck like in every kind of spiral. And he doesn't know how to be there for this one.
So this is, I think I touched on this a little bit in the episode we did on 17 and 18.
Yeah.
Where I said it's a role reversal here because normally Buck's the one who's like prodding and waiting. And this is Eddie trying to do it, but like it doesn't work because that line was supposed to be the, hey, talk to me about like you're spiraling, how you're feeling.
Like, I know
I really
you're
think
spiraling.
that's what that was. Yeah, I like no one knows how to talk to you about it. Talk about it. And instead he's a brat. Like I think that really was him like trying to like close the distance between them and be like, talk to me.
Yeah, I just think of the Supernatural episode where like Dean sits on the bed talking to Cass and is just like, talk to me. It's the same kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, it's almost begging him
Yes.
to open up.
Yeah.
But like assertively.
I mean, he's more open when he walks over there.
Yeah. He's like desperate to.
He is desperate. He looks desperate and his face gets softer and softer as he walks over there.
Exactly. Like his facial expression is not anger.
No.
It is desperation. It is, please let me in.
Yeah.
And this is him trying to extend that olive branch. And Buck is just like, no,
Brat.
I'm going to be a
Yeah.
brat.
It's him going, I have no idea what's going on with you because you won't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need to like talk to me. And
this really like should have been apparent because of Eddie's opening scene in this episode. Like, I think I'm just so stuck on how it was interpreted in the first watch through. Like this was all about Buck. This whole conversation. This is him reaching out. This is him finally getting as close as he possibly can.
Yeah.
And then Buck's just like, well, I'm sorry.
yeah, it's extending
Throws
the
that wall
olive
up again.
branch and Buck lights it on fire.
Mhm. Yeah, just like like steel door.
Like he just spit on it. So
and that's why I think Eddie is trying to push Buck to
Yeah.
open up and push, and I think this is why we have like this kind of physicality to this scene.
So Eddie is trying to be Buck. He's trying to like be Buck to get him to open up the way he does to him, right?
Mhm.
But the problem is that works with Buck and Eddie because that is how Eddie responds. It's by being prodded a little bit, but like given the time and the space for him to like gather his thoughts to actually talk and open up. For Buck, he needs to be asked direct questions
Mhm.
because otherwise he's going to take things when he's in like an agitated or an emotional state. He's going to take it as like a rejection, a failure, an accusation. It's going to come across to him negatively. You need to just outright ask him a question. How are you feeling? What's going on with you? Like a question instead of the open-endedness.
Beating around the bush.
Mm-hmm.
Like all Buck has to do for Eddie is just kind of like knock on the door.
Yes.
And open it a crack.
And look at him like, once he gives him a bullshit answer, it's just like,
Like,
You
really?
want to try that again?
exactly.
Yeah. But like you said with Buck, that it's not a knock on the door and like open it a crack. It's
I'm in your walls.
The ram, the door ram, like boom, direct question. And I think a lot of that is just like it's on everybody. Like people's Buck translators. I think I mentioned this too in like the 17 and 18 episode. Like people's Buck translators not calibrated correctly, but also when Buck is in such like this kind of state, his translator for like how to interpret other people's stuff is also not calibrated correctly.
No,
so it's just like massive communication.
The RSD, like it's
That Bobby's dead.
You're not the only one that lost him. We all lost him. And we're just trying to do our damn best to get through it.
Yeah, I know.
so after Buck is a brat, Eddie gets in his face with a finger and a hand on the wrong shoulder. I don't know if it was on purpose. I think Ryan said that he did that like of his own, like it wasn't scripted. So I think he was getting notes like, how's he making you feel? Like, do you want to punch him? And he was like, I don't want to punch him. But I think this was improvising. Like Oliver didn't know he was going to do this. But it's like every other time we get a shoulder touch, it's
usually the right
hand, left shoulder.
Right hand, left shoulder, and it's left hand on right shoulder, and it just feels wrong. And I don't know if it was like a conscious decision or subconscious, but it just adds another layer of like nothing is right that I love. Eddie just wants comfort. Like he wants it verbally, emotionally, but he really just wants a fucking hug.
Yeah.
You can't just ask for a hug. So he's trying to reach out physically here.
Yeah. This is really what it is. It's not an act of violence or anger. If you look at his facial expression,
it's not aggressive.
There is no aggression there. It is, again, just like absolutely pleading to be let in.
Like, listen to me.
The minutia in the facial expressions here that Ryan does with like the eyebrow quivering and just the big pleading eyes is so perfect. It's so well done because of the subtlety to it. And it just really starts opening up this very deep, deep hurt that Eddie is feeling that he hasn't been able to communicate about at all.
He doesn't let himself show these emotions around anyone but Buck and Bobby, and Bobby's gone. So
woof. Yeah, he's like literally all Eddie wants to do is for once talk about his feelings, and he's not being given an opportunity to.
It's like he's waiting to be asked. He's waiting for the permission to break down, right? To cry. To like the permission to cry, to like feel like he's in the safe space that Buck normally is.
And I think we've said this before, like, which is why he hasn't left for El Paso. He's been there for like a couple weeks now, and he's been waiting for the moment to break down and grieve with Buck, and he just hasn't, and that's why he's just been there. And I think there's also the added layer of also being worried about him, so he has just not left and just trying to shoulder what is going on with Buck and between them. And finally, it's coming to a head here.
And I think this is the moment too, because again, we keep saying like, they're pushing each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's less of a push and pull and more of a push and push. I think this is kind of the climax of that for Eddie. Like he's kind of pushed Buck enough to like kind of shake him mentally, a little bit physically, but more mentally, like listen to me right now. And that, but also that kind of break in Eddie's more calm demeanor as well that he's also been carrying around, that allows him to kind of open up to Buck.
Like, I never felt like this was a being angry or anything. I think it's it's definitely a like, hey, listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
That, we've all lost him. I lost him, and like kind of like wake up a little bit, like not in a hostile way. It's just like
it's very much like begging, like we're in this together and you aren't letting us be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's just trying to reach out so far to Buck that he ends up just like touching him physically to be like, hey.
And Buck wasn't scared.
No.
He doesn't flinch. He doesn't move. So it wasn't even very forceful. It was hand on the shoulder and like just lurching forward into his space.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a finger he loves pointing. Yeah. But like, I mean, when I watched this the first time, I was like, ooh, that makes me uncomfortable because I don't like confrontation like that. Like I very much don't like fighting verbally at all. I'm kind of like, let's cool off and then let's like talk about it logically once we've both kind of like had some space from the moment. So it made me like deeply uncomfortable. Even though it's uncomfortable to watch, I don't think that it is like aggressive or
no, it's purposefully uncomfortable
to
watch because it's an uncomfortable confrontation and conversation.
Yes.
I think this whole action that Eddie takes is completely within character because we've seen how he grieves before with someone else who is very, very close to him with Shannon. He is angry, but he always turns that anger inward. On himself.
Yeah.
So it's not that he was acting aggressively or angrily towards Buck. He's just so like roiled with anger at the situation. He does kind of know how to funnel it because he's always like very gentle and he feels the anger, but he doesn't let that really control him. And I think the only time that did was like Fight Club, but he's learned his lesson with that. But you know.
Well, that was more like punishing himself.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. I really think that just had a slight like brain blast. I think for Eddie, who has experienced a lot of grief, the people he served with, the grief from that, he was in it all alone because literally all of them were gone and no one else was left to grieve with. And then with Shannon, like he had Christopher, but like he can't really grieve with his 4-year-old. Exactly.
No.
Well, 7, 8, whatever. But yeah, you can't.
Young child.
It's not the same thing. Like it's your kid and they're very young.
Because he has to be the parent.
Yes. And no one else was close. I mean, like his family hated her. So like there was no one for him to grieve with and he was all alone. And I think this was the one time that he was like, I'm going to be able to go home and be with my best friend, my partner. And I'm going to be able to like
finally have someone to lean on.
Yes. And we'll be able to lean on each other and like, this is horrible, but like, we'll be okay because we have each other and we can get through it together.
And they're in it together. So
yes,
it's also
because they always are in it together.
So it's not even like Eddie would be the only one in that kind of mental, emotional space. He'd be sharing it with Buck.
Yes.
And that whole opportunity to like get even closer together in that way has just been absolutely squandered because Buck is trying to be what he thinks other people need him to be in a way that doesn't come naturally towards him.
So he showed up expecting to go through this with Buck, and instead it's some pod person version of Buck. And that's why it's been weeks, because he's waiting for like him to crack. He's waiting for him to spiral into the actual emotion so that he can be in it with him.
Waiting for Buck to blow up from that spiral.
Yeah.
To like crash out, because it always happens. Yeah. And it's almost like he's trying to accelerate that process.
Well, yeah, because I mean, he has to go, but like, he's also like, well, I think it's just very much like, I don't think he thinks that he is allowed to, well, yeah, he's never going to ask.
No.
But he doesn't think that he's allowed to be open and kind of like break down the way he needs to and cry and seek comfort without Buck doing it first and like doing it together, because he just never has. Not how he works.
No, and I'm sure that's from like past trauma where, you know, you shouldn't be crying for whatever reason. Like you have to be just like not feel those emotions, especially outwardly. Like that's, I'm pretty sure, I think we all agree that that's how he was raised.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like 100%. There's so much machismo that like he had to have been instilled with as a child from his father. But he has like all of these very consistent tells of like when he's trying not to cry. And he does this right after like he says you're not the only one who lost him. We're just, you know, trying to do our damn best. He turns around because he's starting to cry.
Yeah.
Because he's trying to hold it back. He's trying to get together, and he can't look at Buck finally being kind of like open and listening to him and not cry. And this is so fucking relatable.
No, it's so relatable to me. I'm like, I do the mouth thing that he does.
Me too.
And I'm like, I can't look at anyone.
Yeah, what it is, I think he's chewing on the inside of his lip, because I do that constantly.
Yeah, I know.
Really? Because you never asked what it was like. Waking up in the middle of the night to that news. Sitting alone in the dark. Trying to keep it together so I don't scare the crap out of my kid. And when he woke up, I had to tell him another person he loved was dead.
Oh. I'm sorry. I know it was important to you too.
The voice crack at when he finishes saying, just so I don't have to scare the crap out of my kid.
Yeah. Oh, felt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons that this has been so difficult for Eddie is because, you know, we were talking a little bit about role reversal, and Buck has always been the one to like have his emotions so readily available, so like on the surface sort of thing, so that it's easy for Buck to be the instigator in, you know, knocking on the door, opening it a crack, and allowing Eddie to just like answer in his own time sort of thing. So I think because Buck isn't being how he normally is with the emotions like so easily tapped into, because they're so pushed down, he has that steel wall all around him. It's so difficult for Eddie to, Han, you're right when you were saying earlier that like he's trying to be Buck in this situation to like bring those emotions up to like the surface level, but that's just not who Eddie is. They sit so deep within him.
Buck is normally like an emotional conduit.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to do it. He's trying so hard, but he's just so bad at talking about his emotions.
Because he's not like Buck, where they sit on the surface or just under the surface.
No.
They are 40 feet deep. And and so it takes so much more effort for him to drudge those up to the surface. And that's why it's so much more difficult for him to start
kind of like
these conversations.
And him, whereas Buck, it's so easy for him most of the time to just spit out the emotion because it is so close to the surface. For Eddie, it's almost just like vivisection. Like he has to take himself apart in order to do it. Like it's like he's cutting into himself, like, and to physically remove it to get it out of him.
Like operations game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like it's just really hard for him.
I think you see that in the way this part is being blocked, where he's telling Buck actually what he was going through, because so much of it is kind of like half and half. He's like turned away, like back to Buck, like facing the island, so he can kind of like steel himself to continue to dredge up these difficult emotions and be transparent in that, because it's very difficult for him to do. And it's hard to look someone in the eye when you're talking about that stuff, even if it's Buck.
Oh my
And
God.
that's just who Eddie is. So like, it's interesting though, when he faces him and he's so open, he's talking about how he had to tell Christopher. And I think that is very telling that he's so open in that, because that is something that Buck understands. That is something that Buck has actually had to do himself with, telling Christopher about Eddie getting shot and not knowing that if he would survive or not. And when Chris called him to come over because Eddie was having his panic attack after finding out that the rest of his squad was no longer alive. Like, that is one of the strongest points of connection for them. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're both facing each other at that moment, because the saying of, everything is about Buddy except Buddy, which is about Christopher. So I think,
and that's where I was saying, we do get like not a second cut, or like a 1 second cut to Buck's reaction before the second reaction, which is the and I know like that's where it hit him, like, this is where they do connect because of Christopher, and like
the easiest connection that they can get, so they can go deeper again.
Yeah, and I think it hits him then too, that like, obviously, yes, the Christopher, and him having to like make sure that he doesn't scare him again, like you said so earlier, like he did when he had his breakdown. But also, yes, he had to tell his kid that he lost someone else, but it's also, Eddie lost another person who he loved.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't the first very close person who he loved who he's lost. So
again,
who he wasn't able to save. I think that's when it hits him.
Every person that Christopher has lost, Eddie has also just like inherently lost. Plus more.
Yeah.
So that, I think, really starts hitting home. And when Eddie is relaying like how he got that phone call, and I think this was the exact right decision for them to film this like interstitial cut of Eddie finding out that like has no dialogue. It's just the dialogue of him explaining.
I think there was like a whole scene of dialogue and stuff shot, and
I think so too, but we didn't get that. I think, we know that was a longer scene than what we got. Like, I think it still played out perfectly. I would love to see more of that anyways. But I think this was like such a perfect decision to include that, not only because we didn't get Eddie's reaction in 8:15 or 16, but because it again kind of puts us in the POV of Eddie, exactly, that we're there, we're seeing it happen as it's happening. And like Sil has been saying, that does very, very similarly and visually tie into
parallels to him
to season 5. Like, because he's on the floor, he is not on the bed. He is trying, and you also see like how immediately he has to try to tamp down those emotions, which he is obviously feeling, because he can't be as open with that for Christopher's sake.
Yeah.
So he was really hoping and like leaning on the fact that he would be able to do that with Buck, and that's just not happening.
I'm sorry. I know it was important to you too.
He saved my life.
After Buck says, I'm sorry. I know he was important to you too. That is where Eddie actually breaks. Like, he has been given permission to.
But he doesn't fully break.
But he breaks more than he has been.
Well, yeah, but he's still not letting himself cry. He's still shaking it off. He's doing that little head shake he does when he's trying not to cry. Like, he brings his hand up to his head, like a lot of similar stuff that I do when I'm trying not to cry, where I'm like, okay, like, pull your shit together. But he's like very close to it. It's really close to the surface, but he's still tamping it down. But Buck apologizing is what like almost makes him break and finally like let himself cry.
It's so close to what he needs.
Yes. So he was facing away from him completely, back completely to him. And then for the next part, he kind of does start to turn towards Buck.
I wasn't there to save his. And always wonder, if I was there, could I have made a difference?
This drives me
Oh,
fucking bonkers. This drives me fucking bonkers because this man is so clearly asking for a hug without asking for a hug. Like literally would have just fallen apart and cried.
Yeah.
If Buck had just hugged him.
In a second.
He was right there.
So Eddie says, he saved my life and I wasn't there to save his. And then he turns completely back around to Buck and it says, a part of me will always wonder if I was there, could I have made a difference? And it's very obviously, I mean, to us, it's about him, then him blaming himself and him needing comfort to not blame himself because he can't let himself feel the emotion because he blames himself.
Yeah. And I think that is like him being the most vulnerable in this entire scene because that is like the deepest rooted part of himself of him blaming himself because he wasn't there.
Trauma.
Again, so much of Eddie's trauma as opposed to Buck's, which is abandonment. Eddie's is not being there. And so that just like brings all of that trauma back up again. And he is flaying himself open for Buck at this moment. And I do love how steady Buck's gaze is on Eddie. He doesn't blink. His eyes don't like look around too much. He doesn't close his eyes to like take it in. I think that's a very smart decision on Oliver's part to just have him watching Eddie like just that whole time, like undivided attention, because Eddie has just wanted to be seen this whole time.
He just wants to be told that it's not his fault and hugged. Like that's literally all Buck had to do here to land the plane. That's all he had to do, but instead his fucked up brain
they're
the wrong way.
They're both so embroiled in their own insecurities of what has happened. Buck being abandoned by Bobby, Eddie not being there for Bobby, that they can't, even though Eddie is doing so much to reach Buck emotionally and to open himself up so Buck can then open up. It's that give and take that we see so often with other couples like Chimney and Maddie, that they do so well. This like, I'm going to be a little vulnerable so then you can be vulnerable right back at me. And Eddie is trying so hard to do that, but they're still so like far apart in their insecurities. They're so entrenched in it that they, Eddie is trying to reach out, but he can only reach out so far. And Buck is like so insulated into himself, like small inside his like steel wall of, I gotta be fine. Like that they just can't reach each other at this point.
It's also, they've never grieved together. So it's a new language. It's not something that they can, like a lot of the other things.
They don't know how to navigate it.
They don't have an unspoken, we just make faces at each other and that's how we communicate about the situation to know what the other person needs.
They don't know what these faces mean.
This is the season of season 8, buddy miscommunication. That's really what the season was.
Oh, it's going to keep happening.
And it's on purpose. And it's going to continue into season 9.
Yep.
And but I'm so glad we have this kind of scene because it really is so fascinating. It's such a good character study.
I think I did everything I could to save him.
I don't know, Buck. I wasn't there.
Eddie's face immediately closes off after Buck comes at him with, you didn't think I did everything I could to save him. His face closes off and he looks angry again. But again, it's
not at Buck.
It's not at Buck. It's at himself. He's like, I don't know, Buck. I wasn't there. And it's just like they're having two different conversations.
They are. That's the thing. They're having two different conversations. They think they're having the same conversation. They're not. And also the way Eddie says, like, I don't know, Buck, I wasn't there. His head kind of shakes a little bit, and like his body, like he looks like he's almost gearing up for a fight, like again, almost like steeling himself to like, yeah, I'm gonna be tough again. Like, but it's not directed at Buck. It is actually, again, directed at himself. All of that is internalized. So when Eddie is like, I don't know, Buck, I wasn't there. Yeah, this is just like that major miscommunication, because Buck thinks that Eddie's blaming him for not being there, and but it's just like they're so involved in their own issues.
Sorry, I just had this thought. Eddie storms out to the couch, like 10 feet away, in the open.
I can't even slam a door.
I think in one of the fics that I read, there were or maybe it was a Twitter. It was like a tweet, and someone was like, something about like one of them storming off, and like they go outside, and then they're like, oh wait, I actually live here. I sleep here.
And then has to like slink back inside, being like,
I feel like the most privacy he could have gotten was like just going to the bathroom and taking a shower or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bathroom's too close to Buck's room. We don't even know what's happening with with Christopher's room.
I mean, it's a shrine.
It is.
It's empty.
I also find it kind of fascinating that Eddie is the one to leave the scene. He's the one to exit the kitchen, because he was the one to enter the kitchen. Buck was already there, and he left first. Buck was already in the kitchen. He was already there. He's staying in the kitchen, and it was Eddie to like come in and leave. Almost like he's so much more transitory in Buck's life now, because maybe he doesn't belong anymore, because he belongs in El Paso. We know that's not true, but like he doesn't feel like he has the right to stay or the plans to stay, but also,
well, yeah, it's not his house anymore.
I know.
Well, it's technically still his house,
but it's not.
He's leasing it. But yeah, I kind of just read it as he kind of opened up as much as he was fucking able to, and now he has to go like sew himself back up.
Yeah,
all the wounds that he just self-inflicted to try and like get Buck to open up.
Eddie also does like to have the last word a little bit.
Well, yeah,
part of that like last little sting of, well, think on that. And now I'm going to leave. But again, it wasn't directed. This last one wasn't directed at Buck. He is so angry at himself for not being there again. Yeah, then he just goes and pouts on the couch.
You think he had the blanket over his head so that when Buck came through, he couldn't see him?
But the thing is, too, like when Buck leaves the kitchen, he has to walk right by the couch.
That's what I'm saying.
And are they just like...
No. He has to go through the living, like the...
Oh, true. Okay.
He has that walkway that's in front of Christopher's room. He could have just...
There's
a
never
archway.
Mind. Yeah. But it is... Okay, so then it is interesting, though, in the next scene, which I don't think we have here, but like that next day, you know, when Eddie has like folded up the sheets and put it on the couch and gives the note, and Buck comes out and he's like, hey, Eddie. And he's so ready to finally talk about something. And then Eddie's just not par for the course. Eddie's just not there. And Buck thinks he's been abandoned again. And we know this is for good reason, because this is Eddie making his apology and bringing Christopher and Peppa back into the picture. But just like the way that leaves it too is so indicative of this entire thing. Like it's the same issues. Eddie is not there. Buck feels left again. They just, oh my God. It's just, they need to talk.
It's also just so purposeful, because like Buck was ready to talk, but Eddie wasn't there. So like if he had been there, they would have actually had a conversation. But instead they were like, no.
Yeah, which again,
we're going to write this.
Again, purposeful. I think we're
going to write this scene to show how embedded he is in this family, not just with Christopher, but with Peppa. And continue to not let them actually have real conversation. Interesting choices.
Yeah. They're really driving home this like they're on opposite sides. They're not communicating the way they normally do.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's going to be so juicy when they finally
I
get
know.
to talk. I
And
can't wait.
This scene, just like every single fucking part about it, it could straight up be like ripped out of like a romantic like drama
Yes.
of a married couple.
This is what that is. It's
filmed
in that way.
Down
it's
to
like
Eddie sleeping on the couch and leaving a note that he left the next morning.
Yeah.
Like
this whole scene could have been in A Marriage Story, right?
Oh my God. Not that movie.
Except maybe without like the making holes in the wall. We've already seen that.
It's the vibe. It's the fact that
It is the vibe. Yeah.
it's that everything was so intentional from every piece of this, from the dialogue itself to the direction
Yes.
in the script, to the blocking, the lighting, costuming, the acting, the directing, the cinematography, the shaky camera, the like everything we've talked about. Like it's all so intentional to make it feel this way.
This is possibly one of the best scenes of 911. I think it's a fantastic scene of television. I do think everyone involved should, like, it's a perfect mesh of all of the different people involved in this. I do just want to say, like, the credits for this episode, because it was written by Molly Green and James Leffler. It was directed by Jonathan Lawrence. And then the director of photography was Andrew Mitchell. And I think we know the actors, obviously, but I think everything just like came together in such a perfect way. Like all of those different elements just works so well in the way that they decided to play this, like from the handheld camera. And I think Andrew Mitchell often focuses a lot on movement. And I think that really gives a great dynamic to this scene. The way they had the blocking with the turning away and opening up to each other, and, you know, in the different corners of the kitchen, the different sides, is just so fantastic. And the writing, which I think we are pretty big fans of Molly Green and James Leffler's work this season. It's being their first season on 911 OG. I think they wrote for Lone Star previously, but like to understand the characters so well, like that really shines through in this, because in order for the characters to be at such odds like this in a way that is so in character, you have to really understand them just like generally, right? And then the acting choices.
There's a lot of care, so much care put into this scene. And I don't know, like this is, I mean, I'm not trying to downplay it, but I'm just saying, like, for such a scene where it's starts off as a silly argument, but not argument over groceries, to what it became to the, you know, how we got to the end of it. Like there was just so much care and so much nuance. It's just it's an impactful scene with a lot of meat in it.
Yeah.
It's like she's gonna say meat or juice.
Either
a lot of juice.
Yeah, and I
very
think
juicy. I should have said juicy.
So juicy.
Don't drink the water.
Juice.
Sorry.
That's what this episode is all about. You got to drink the juice instead of the water.
They should have just DoorDashed the groceries and drank the juice. We solved it.
This would have like
feral dispute over
so much, like sidestep so much. I think also just to like give some extra praise to Oliver and Ryan. I think they also really show their incredible range that they have and how well they know the characters and how well, like in addition to the writing, because you know, you base what's on the page, but in some of those moments that they find together, like within the characters of themselves, but also the relationship that Buck and Eddie have, and that push and push rather. And I really want to say, like, they found the textures of the characters so well. And I know you're going to laugh at me, but that's what this is. It's like because it is so nuanced, it is so like deep that they just get it, and it's played so well on both of their parts. So like I could watch this scene.
It's so good.
So it's 10 hours long. Like it's a 3-minute scene. It's 10 hours long to me. Like
we've been
it's gone platinum in my head.
3 hours and talking about it for like 2.5 of those. So
yeah,
needless to say, we love this scene. We think it's incredible, and we can't wait for more like it
next season.
Hopefully
next season. Yeah,
just like a masterclass of television.
Yeah, I would love for them to get this director
again.
Yeah.
This is one of Tim's good friends.
I think so.
I believe so.
That's what the streets said.
That's what the streets said.
That's what the streets reported.
The streets reported from Tim's Facebook.
Great choice, Tim.
Yeah.
Great choice.
Bring him back.
The matching of the director to the writers.
Yeah.
That was just kind of magical. So like that worked out really well. Yes, please. Everybody. More.
I need that trio. Or actually, no, that is it a quad? Yeah, I need that quad from the 2 writers, the director, and the director of photography. I need those 4 to do another
Dream
episode
team.
again about Buck and Eddie.
I love Andrew Mitchell's stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's so cool.
I mean, I love all of the. It's just like everyone has their own flair, but the movement based of like his stuff, is so like I'm in it. I'm here.
Yeah, consistently. Like this whole season has that kind of camera work, and it's been really good. It was different even from the start, because I think we did notice it from like the first episode,
801.
From 801, we were like, whoa, this is different.
Like it's very immersive. So it's just a really even easier way to get us as the audience like entrenched in what's going on screen, which is a great, like that's so cool to be able to like do that through visual language like that.
Remember, don't divorce your baby daddy in the kitchen.
Don't forget to DoorDash.
Don't forget to DoorDash.
DoorDash your groceries. We're trying to get that
working
DoorDash
for that
sponsorship.
Are we beating a dead horse or?
Remember, don't divorce your baby daddy in the kitchen.
But if you do,
take a buddy with you.
Thank you for listening to the Buddy System podcast from start to finish.
We literally cannot shut up about 911, so please come talk to us on your favorite social media platform.
We are at Buddy System Pod everywhere. That's BUDDIE System Pod. Leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to get a personal shout out in the next episode. The Buddy System is a Nerd Virgin media production featuring music from Divinity.
Can't get enough of the buddies? Subscribe to our Patreon for access to exclusive content and our Discord community.
Catch you next time, and don't forget,
bring a buddy with you.